Hey, what's up? This is boogiepanda, and I'm going to show you my Dxtory settings. Many of you may know that I've switched from FRAPS to Dxtory recently because in the quality test I did the side-by-side video. If you haven't seen it, you can go back and watch it. It seems that most people would say, I think in fact everyone who commented said that Dxtory looked better than FRAPS did. And one of my main reasons, other than quality, to switch was because I started playing some other games like Battlefield 3, CSGO, etc. And what Dxtory allows me, better than FRAPS does, in fact FRAPS doesn't even do it, is that FRAPS locks your playing frame rate to its recording frame rate. So if you were to say record at 30 frames per second, which is a fairly reasonable FPS to record at, FRAPS would lock you down to playing at 30 frames per second. And while I'm playing Battlefield 3 or CSGO, where my computer is capable of achieving 50 frames per second in Battlefield 3 or 300 frames per second in CSGO, playing at 30 frames per second just won't do in a first-person shooter. In an MMORPG, it might be just about sufficient, but in a first-person shooter it just wouldn't do at all. So yeah, here's my Dxtory settings. This one's for elementclient.exe, which is the perfect world settings. This, I have the video FPS drawn because I like to see what sort of frames I'm getting. I have the recording color set to green just because I prefer green over red, but I think the default might be green for non-recording color and red for recording color, but this bit is preference. Folder, this is where I keep my stuff. You should enter your file destination here, or just click on the browse button, and I use F12 to record, just because most games does not actually use the F12 key. It uses like F1, F2, like F10 mostly, and F11 and F12 just aren't used, so that's what I prefer using. For movie, you could tick this box for use default setting, but my default setting is actually another codec because for most of the games I record are not CPU, so heavily reliant on CPU, whereas Perfect World is, so I actually don't use my default settings for Perfect World. It's a custom setting, if you like, and the codec I use is the default Dxtory video codec, and I use the medium quality preset, and do not click compress. Compression uses your CPU, although I believe Dxtory could use your graphics card to compress on the fly, but I'm not 100% sure. And during some testing I did, walking through West Arco without compression on, I was playing at 23 frames per second on average, and with compress on that went down to 20. I mean, it's only a 10% difference, and it could well be in the margin of error just because of the walkthrough I did through West Arco might be a little different. But yeah, I think definitely compressing does use your CPU, and on such a heavily CPU dependent game, you definitely do not want to press. Do not want anything that uses your CPU. Again, I record at 30 frames per second, although you could record at 15 and play it back at 2 times speed, and that's just as good. I have 100% scaling. I don't want mouse cursor, although the in-game cursor will still show. You don't want to synchronize this. The other stuff I just don't use. So basically, essentially, it's the same as FRAPS, where it only records a game window if you leave these settings like this, and the file output you want AVI, which means, well, it's basically the same as FRAPS, but it's better quality in my opinion, and it allows you to play at a higher frame rate. Audio doesn't really matter for Perfect World, no one really uses it, and yeah, that's it really. Yeah, I hope this helped you guys a little bit with Dxtory if you're thinking of switching, and see you guys. One thing I forgot to say just real quick, that Dxtory does not automatically split your video into 4 GB chunks. That might be an advantage to you or might be a disadvantage. The advantage is that you only have one file you need to work with, so you don't need to like drag all the files into your timeline, and you can just edit that one file. However, if that file becomes corrupted, then you basically lose the whole recording session. So that's another thing to bear in mind. You could just manually split the footages like I do, like every half an hour or something. Just stop recording. After 3 seconds, start recording again. And yeah, I mean, I think it's the best of both worlds, really.